I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. I'm going to let you guys have time to come into the conversation, into the live stream, into the discussion. As you know, Dr. Boyce TV is the home for intelligent Black people. So if you're not Black or intelligent or trying to get that way, then you may not want to be here. This may not be the place for you. Today, I get the distinct pleasure, as we do every week on Powernomics Thursday, to speak with the one and only, the extraordinary, the brilliant Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website is powernomics.com. And so without further ado, as you guys hit the thumbs up button, hit that thumbs up button. Please hit that thumbs up button and hit likes and shares to welcome my good friend, Dr. Claud Anderson. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
Good, good. All right. So let's get started. Okay. So everybody, as we get started, everybody comes in here. We always do the city shout out, and I want you to shout out your business. This platform belongs to the community, so I want you to promote your business or promote your dream, or just at least rep your city. So everybody, on the count of three, go ahead and shout out your city, your business, or your dream. Your city, your business, or your dream, or you can shout out all three. I see Lisa's here, Conrad, Tahia, Israel. How you doing, Tahia? Ricky Stone, Anderson Hatch from Philadelphia. I see Master Ride, Ricky Fontaine. Dr. Boyce, please check my DM when you have a minute. Okay, sounds good. Let me see. I see Organized Bufu. I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting. I see, let's see, Chill Vision from Stockton, California, Mr. Lomax from Seattle, Nature Boy from Jackson, Mississippi. I love Jackson. Michael R. from Pittsburgh. Y'all got crazy traffic. Y'all need to fix some freeways. Sonia from Lansing, Michigan. Reese from Inglewood. Sorry, I should say Inglewood. DeVale from Chicago. Bless Bine Mister from Tennessee. Cassandra from Arlington, Texas. Let's see, Bridgewater Investment Properties, Houston, Texas, from Anthony. Detroit, living in Greenville, South Carolina, from Harlan, et cetera, Newark. And I can keep going down the list, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do that too much, because I want us to get to the conversation for today. So please hit that thumbs up button as we begin the discussion. Now, what I wanted to ask Dr. Anderson about today is something that relates. There's a chapter in Dr. Anderson's book, and the book is Powernomics, which it should be the economic Bible in your household. It should be one of the books. Every Black person should have certain books in their library, in their home library. You know how people would have a copy of Ebony and Jet magazine back. You remember Dr. Anderson? They would have Ebony on the coffee table and Jet next to Ebony, and everybody got to look at the Jet Beauty of the Week. I think that we should also take that up a notch, and everybody should have a copy of Powernomics in their living room on their bookshelf. And because it's not a book that you read once, it's a book you should read 100 times and just keep reading the passages over and over again. Because Ebony was right when they called it the Black Economic Bible. And there's a section in your book, Dr. Anderson, and I go to your book. I reference your book a lot of times when I'm trying to understand certain things I might see in the community or problems we're seeking to solve. And this book is a tremendous contribution in that regard. And you have a section on codes of conduct and group accountability. Now, I'm gonna read a little bit in this little short passage in this, and just with your brilliance and your understanding of these concepts, because you wrote the book on Powernomics. I'd like to get your thoughts on what I read in terms of helping us elaborate this and understand it and apply it. Here you say that a code of conduct is a standard of behavior that outlines what is right and wrong within and outside the community. It serves as a competitive tool that promotes group unity and accountability by suggesting either rewards or punishments for its members based upon how their acts help or hurt the members of that group. So I took note of what you said about codes of conduct being a competitive tool. Can you kind of speak to how communities that have strong codes of conduct, why they tend to do better than communities that have no standards of conduct whatsoever?
Right. Well, thank you. Well, see, it is absolutely essential if you're going to be a competitive group to have a code of conduct. Every group I know of on earth has a code of conduct, with the exception of Native Black Americans. We don't have a code of conduct. And whites, for instance, let me show you the difference between one being competitive and one being a way of controlling. See, and the first time a code of conduct was introduced in this country that was respected was in the slave codes of 1705. What they did, they put out, this was a slave code in 1705, what it said very explicitly, Dr. Watkins, is that it's like having a two-sided coin. They said, here's how white folks must behave. They must behave. On one side, and on the second side, this is how black folk must behave. On the white side, on the side of that coin, it says that white people, there's certain things that white people cannot do, and they would not tolerate it. You cannot, for instance, allow a black person to be an authority in a controlled situation over whites. That is absolutely forbidden, point one. It says that you cannot allow a black person to speak to or address a white person by his first name. It says thirdly, you cannot allow a black person to try to hold a white person accountable. For instance, like counting his change and anything like that. And when a white person said, this is it, that's it. You cannot dispute a white person by the code of conduct on how black folk were to behave. That was instituted in the slave codes of 1705. On the other side of the coin, it told whites how they were to behave towards black folk. What they could not do, they could not elevate a black person. And they could not necessarily even set a black folk person free without having some permission, to having approved meritorious manumission policies. So a code of conduct tells everybody how you ought to behave to be competitive. And that stayed in effect throughout from 1705 all the way up until after the Civil War. When the Civil War, they modified that and they called it a code of etiquette. They modified it. It switched from being a code of conduct that regulated and controlled blacks in slavery. After slavery ended, so they came up with another new thing called a code of etiquettes, and that was instituted in 1870, which says this is the way black folk must now perform now that you're free, that you're quasi-free. And what they said there is there are three things you must not do, because now you can free, you're voting. You can get jobs, and even particularly in the public arena as either a clerk or as a mailman or a sheriff or a policeman in your own neighborhoods, or if you get elected to a public office like a few went to the Congress or anything. The code of etiquette says three things you must not do. One, you must not go into a public arena and sort of folk and talking about groupism or group issues, because they know, because as a group, that's a possibility of having potential power. If we allow you to group, then if I take your fingers and make them into a fist, that signifies a potential for power. One, you cannot talk about groupism under the code of etiquette that was put in place in 1870. Secondly, you cannot come in and start talking about issues pertaining strictly and solely to black people. You cannot do that. And thirdly, the thing you cannot do, you cannot come in and start trying to hold white folks accountable for how we treated you during 360 years of slavery. That was a code of etiquette that came in. And it was codified after that into what you all call the black codes, which means we are now putting in peonage laws. So every state enacted laws in the South that told black folk exactly how they were to behave. It's called the black codes at that point in time, which is a code of etiquette. And that was a nice way they put it. It was a code of controlling black folk in the South, saying you could not have a weapon. You can have a shotgun, but you can't have a pistol. You cannot be anywhere near a white woman. Those are codes of etiquette. It's designed not only to control, but it's also to keep you either competitive or non-competitive. It kept white folk competitive in the slave codes and the code of etiquette, but it also kept black folk non-competitive, weak, and in a weakened, vulnerable position. Now, that's just in that code. Now, other groups have a code of conduct. For instance, Asians have a code of conduct. They say in no circumstances, the Chinese Asians say, we're going to conduct business with black folk. They do not. We're not going to buy from you. You must follow us. And that's why when I had the seafood industry, they would not buy for black businesses. I did a research that found over 237,000 Asians that have become wealthy people, multimillionaires, off of selling products and services and goods to black people in America, Dr. Watkins. They have become multimillionaires just by strictly producing and selling items to black folk in America. That means tennis shoes, socks, clothing, whatever it might be, toys, anything. But I could never find not one black person who would become a multimillionaire for selling something to Asians. And they told me repeatedly in Miami and in Washington, D.C., we do not buy from black folk. We will not hire black folk. It's against our code of ethics, our code of conduct. We won't do it. And nobody, that's why they all boycott black businesses. That's why no ethnic group's going to come to your community and buy anything from you. It's a code of etiquette and ethics, conduct. But black folk don't have that. Black folk were stripped of that in slavery, saying that you took out by the slave codes, you cannot come together. We do not want you do blacks to come together anytime, any place, and to plan anything in a group sense that'll make you competitive. That's why during the 60s that we had all these different organizations, the FBI and everybody else that broke up the Black Panthers and all these black organizations, because coming together signifies power, just like it did for blacks as it did for the slave codes for whites.
Everybody, I'm talking to Dr. Claud Anderson, author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and also Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. We're talking about codes of conduct and how codes of conduct can either strengthen you as a group, or they can be used in this context that he's referring to. They can be used to control another group. You know, if you got a bunch of animals in the zoo, you have codes of conduct amongst the trainers and what you do, how you do and do not engage with the animals. And then you have codes of conduct for the animals in terms of what you will allow them to do and not allow them to do. And guess what, black people, you typically are the animals that are kept in the cage. And some of us don't know that we're in the cage, but some of us choose to act like animals, it seems like, when it comes to not really having any sort of code. So Dr. Anderson, I want to ask you this question. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please take 1 second on the count of 3. Everybody hit the thumbs up button or share the video or do both. 1, 2, 3. If you're on Facebook, please share it. YouTube, anywhere, please share this link.
Dr. Watkins, if you want me, I'll elaborate further on that point I just made to you. See, in America, that's why black folk don't have communities. See, we're the only group in America that do not have not one single solitary community. Because to have a community, that's a form of structure, a sense of community, a sense of peoplehood, a sense of togetherness. You cannot have a sense of community if you don't have a sense of togetherness. And so when you have a code of conduct, it'll tell you how you to cooperate and how to have a community. That's why whites would build forts. Or if somebody was attacking them and the Indians attacking them, they'll circle their wagons. So everything was based on your own common conditions at that particular time, your needs, your interests, and a sense of protection. And see, the blacks don't have any communities. And so consequently, you go across America, you find everybody got it but us. To have a community, you must have three elements in there. The first one is a wholly independent economic structure that will provide jobs, business, products, services, and goods for your own people and business opportunities for your own people. We have none. We don't have not one community in America. All we got are neighborhoods. A neighborhood is not a community. So if it's just a neighborhood, there is no code of conduct in a neighborhood. A neighborhood is go for yourself and do what you want to do, even if it's your neighbor. It says you have no alliance, you have no respect for, no appreciation for, you don't support your neighbors in a neighborhood. Consequently, you start talking about black folks shooting other black people. They shoot them because there's no code of conduct saying don't kill your own people. When you live in a neighborhood where you got all these abandoned houses, boarded up buildings, rundown buildings, vacant lots with weeds growing up and fences and filth on the sidewalk and mattresses on the sidewalk, there's no code of conduct about cleanliness and respecting and appreciating your own people. So consequently, there's no code of conduct. So when one person, they might have a television next door to you, when he leaves and goes to work, you break in his house and steal his damn TV. There's no code of conduct saying support and protect your own people or buy from your own people. And see, everybody, and so we don't have a community. All we got a neighborhood. So there is no black code of conduct. But to have a community, you must have a wholly independent economic structure, a code of conduct, and a body of elected officials who put your interests first and foremost. We don't have that. So consequently, blacks have no code of conduct. Their code of conduct, Dr. Watkins, I know I'm gonna give you a long spiel. Their code of conduct is do your own thing for yourself. That's the code of conduct for black folk. That's why you can be a member of the black overclass. They don't give a damn about you. And if you want to shoot somebody, go into any black community. They'll kill another black at the drop of a hat because there's no code of conduct saying you don't shoot and kill your own people. And then, that's why Jews stick together, Arabs stick together, Hispanics stick together, American Indians stick together, and black people stick each other.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Anderson, that's a lot of honesty. This really, kind of hitting us hard. Tell me if this resonates with you guys. Yes or no. Let us know what you think. throw in your 2 cents. I see Leon's from South Central, where you've got a lot of people in South Central that maintain the code of conduct, but you have a lot of people that don't maintain the code of conduct, and that's why we lose important people like Nipsey Hussle, whoever, or whoever else. I mean, there's probably somebody else who died this week. We just don't know anything about it. It wasn't covered in the media. So Dr. Anderson, you mentioned that an independent economic structure is one thing that differentiates a neighborhood from a community.
Right.
Some other factors, characteristics that will help us identify just what we want to aim for if the goal is to create a community besides independent economic structure. What else would a community have?
I'm sorry, so answer that last question again now.
Oh, sorry. In addition to an independent economic structure, what are some other signs that you actually have a community versus just a neighborhood?
Right. Well, see, in the code of conduct will say, it tells you what to buy, who to buy from, who to support, who to believe in, who to trust, who to fight for, who to protect, and who to align with. That's your code of conduct. That's why I'm not, when blacks come down to Washington, D.C. and they go over to Chinatown, let me give you some examples. Again, some of the more prominent ones I know about. You go over to Chinatown, you tell the Chinese merchants, say, look, I'm a black person. I'm selling and warehousing products and services, and I want to like to sell you some of it. And I can sell you some of the same commercial products you got on your shelves right now in your stores. This is meeting with the Asian merchants right here in 8th Street in Washington, D.C. Watch the code of conduct now. They come out and meet in a room, and the blacks say, look, we like to sell you those same products you got on your shelves, and we like for you to buy some from us. The Asians, you know what the Asians say in the code of conduct? I'm sorry, we can't do that. They said, why? They said, because we're not interested. And so what the blacks would say, well, okay, we'll give you a 25 to 30% discount on the same Cheerios and the sodas, the bottle pop, whatever you're buying. The Asians say, we're still not interested. And you know what the blacks will say then? We don't understand that. Why is it that if we come into your community and sell you the same products, the same goods, and give you a 25 to 30% discount, why is it you won't buy our products? You know what the Asians say? Because it's against our code of conduct. In our community, we only buy from our own people. Only you black folk will buy from any and everybody because you don't have a code of conduct. That's why right now you got a $1.3 trillion income, and you spend 98% of that money outside your own community. You don't buy from your own people. You don't practice group economics. As Asians, we do. We keep all that money. We don't come into the black community buying anything. You come into our community, come to Chinatown. We come into your community, extract your money out. We impoverish you by coming in and setting up businesses and extracting it out. That's why we as Asians, we live off of 2 incomes. We live off of 100% of our money because we don't let it out of our hands. And we come into your community and take another 98% of your money out through Chinatown restaurants, China grocery stores, and cleaners and laundries and everything else. And the same thing is that, you know Carl Nelson, don't you? Carl Nelson ran into the same thing down in Miami. He went to meet with one of the biggest, richest Asians, Chinese, down in Miami. He went in there to sell time on the Mystic radio that Stevie Wonder owned. He went in to sell the guy some radio time. And the guy showed Carl this big 5-story building, luxury, just pure luxury, a luxurious office space. And after he showed Carl around how he became a multi-billionaire. So Carl said, how did you do it? He said, I'm the primary distributor of foodstuffs, services, and goods into the Caribbean islands with all the black islands, Jamaica, Virgin Islands, Bahamas, Bermuda. We sell blacks all the products in those islands. You black folk buy from us and primarily from me as a Chinaman in your grocery stores, and what you need, you get it through me. He said, now what can I do for you, Carl Nelson? And for Mystic Radio and Stevie Wonder, Carl said, all I want to do is to buy a little time on our radio station for advertising. The Chinaman said, I'm sorry, Carl, I cannot do that. And Carl said, why not? He said, because that's against my code of conduct. He said, in our culture, because we have a culture that passes on our code of conduct. You don't have a culture. You don't have a code of conduct. He said, in the Chinese culture, that the rule is that the Chinaman must never follow the black man. The black man must always follow the China man. So I cannot buy any time on your radio station. He said, because our culture wouldn't allow it. Because in our culture, we got a code of conduct says, take care of your own people, your own race, your own family first and foremost. That's why we live together. You all scatter, you all integrate. We don't integrate if we can help it. That's why we got a Chinatown in every city in the United States. You all have nothing, zero. You're busy trying to integrate and go backwards. You don't practice. You cannot, if you can't aggregate, you can't get power. And then when you don't have a code of conduct to help you.
Well, everybody, I'm speaking to Dr. Claud Anderson, author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, the Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. I see you in there, brother. He says, Uncle Boyce, your content has been truly life-changing for me. Well, I appreciate you. Well, you know, y'all been life-changing for me because, back in the day, professors like us, both of us being black men, both of us being scholars, we're not basketball players, rappers, or criminals. So white folks ain't gonna give us no airtime. You all are the people that support us. You're the ones who believe in us, and without you, we're nothing. And I will never ever forget that. And I'm gonna say, if you want to know why I'm very loyal to Dr. Claud Anderson, why my code of conduct says I support Powernomics no matter what. It's because I know that as black men, we don't have a whole lot of friends. We don't have a whole lot of allies out here, Dr. Anderson. They try to destroy black men every chance they get. You even got people like Oprah and Gail trying to tear down Michael Jackson, and Bill Cosby's in prison, and they just, they love to just find anything that they can on the black man, and even without proof, destroy him or discredit him. And so when I meet a black man or a black woman who operates on a code of conduct, who's really built that way. Some people are built to operate on the code. Some people aren't. Some people get flimsy, floppy, but if you really think about it, codes of conduct isn't something that, people just made up. Codes of conduct are natural. It's a natural survival mechanism, that exists all throughout the animal kingdom. Like I watch animals and I see how, you notice how certain animals will run in packs and they do certain things a certain way. And you can tell they do those things because they're trying to survive. They understand that, look, we have a way, like geese fly in a straight line. Even the geese got a code of conduct. You don't fly. You don't see geese flying like in an arrow with 2 or 3 geese just off doing their own thing. All the geese understand that we got a code of conduct and that we must maintain that. And if you don't maintain it, then another geese will come along and discipline you. Well, if you look at the mafia, the mafia had a code of conduct. They had an organized structure. If you wanted to go kill somebody, you had to have a sit down. There had to be a sanctioned killing. If somebody got killed in an unsanctioned fashion, they'd have another sit down. If you got arrested by the police, you ain't supposed to talk, or we'll come kill you. So codes of conduct exist everywhere. What I find, Dr. Anderson, is that every living, breathing, successful organization or group usually has a code of conduct that holds it together. Even if we all went to work for Bank of America. Bank of America is a corporation, which is pretty much kind of like an economic version of a gang. And basically Bank of America, when you walk in the door and you say, I want to get money from you, they say, okay, well, here are all the lists of rules and regulations that we have for all of our employees, and you need to sign this. This is your code of conduct. And if you violate that, you're going to be out, because we know that maintaining that code is important for the survival of what we're trying to do. Another example, Dr. Anderson, that comes to mind is I remember in 1996, there was a time where Kevin Garnett, who is a former NBA player, he got this massive, he went into his contract negotiation. He was a free agent. And the Minnesota Timberwolves wanted to keep him so bad that they gave him an insane amount of money. They started paying him $21 million a year, where the average player at that time wasn't making nothing but maybe $5 or $6 million a year. Even the superstars wasn't making more than $10 million a year. They gave him $21 million a year. So all the team owners freaked out. They said, no, we got to have a lockout. Lockout is basically like a strike, except the owners are the ones who are locking out the players, right? So right then, the NBA team owners had a lockout. Now, let me tell you why the owners, it was a prolonged negotiation. I don't know if you remember, it was all over the news. It lasted for months. And in the negotiation, the owners obliterated the players. The owners kicked the players in the butt. And the reason they kicked them in the butt is because when the owners got together and negotiated with the players, when they had their meeting, David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, put the owners on a code of conduct. From the very beginning, he said, now the players are going to be all over the place. You got the players making lots of money like Michael Jordan. They're going to want one thing. The players who are behind on the rent, they're going to want to sign a deal real fast, and they're going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of dispersion in terms of who wants what. They're going to be fighting. He said, you all must be on the same page all the time, every day. So he gave them a code of conduct. He said, every time we vote, it must be unanimous. It must be unanimous. And so every time they would vote on what they wanted to do or wouldn't do, it was always unanimous, always unanimous, always unanimous, always on code, always on code. And the players got obliterated because they could not compete with the owners. You know, so when I think about code of conduct, I think about all the institutions that get held together, because that's what Black people are missing, right? One thing we're missing is we're missing unity, right? We're missing organization. We're missing institutions. Why? Well, because we're missing codes of conduct. So when I think about other institutions, like I think about my parents were like an institution to me. You know, marriage is an institution. And my parents always had a code of conduct. They did not argue in front of the kids. They never let us know that they disagreed on anything. You know, even if my mother did not agree at all with what my father was doing, she would say, do what your daddy said. You know, same thing, vice versa. You know, and I didn't know till 20 years later that there would be things that they really disagreed about, but they said, we're going to stay on code when it comes to dealing with the kids. So I just think about all these examples of codes of conduct. It almost seems to me like you're saying that that maybe this is something we should teach children. In fact, I think you said it in Powernomics, that in the community, we must start teaching the children while they're young so they'll grow into the code of conduct. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. See, a code of conduct radiates and emanates from your culture. And see, we were intentionally stripped of our culture. When they put Black folk out of Africa on those boats, they stripped them. They stripped them of their religion, their language, their history, their orientation, everything. They were stripped down. They stripped of their culture. The only culture in America is not African American culture. What we got now, we have a fabricated culture. We learn how to survive. Culture comes from behavior patterns that are acceptable and favorable to you, that you pass from one generation to the next. That's what culture is. Tell them, forget all that BS people, how people define it. Culture is nothing but acceptable behavior patterns that are beneficial for a group of people to protect themselves and to compete. And they pass it down to the next generation. That's what culture is. Now, see, white folks stripped Black folk of their culture, and that's why they came up in the 1705 with that slave code. Now, by 1710, remember this now, 1710, which is about 5 years later, guess what they did? They instituted what I told you before called meritorious manumission. They said, now now that we stripped you of your culture, and now we taught you what our culture is for a white male, how he is to treat you. It told white folk how to treat Black folk. Then by 1710, they said, now here's what we're gonna put on Black folk. It's called meritorious manumission. And the meritorious manumission was based on three things. One is that you could be set free if you drop your culture and start accepting our culture. And you do this. One, you work hard and diligently and try to help white folks to be productive on these plantations and making money. You try to enrich whites the best you can. That's why Black folk will go around the plantation boasting, bragging about how big and how rich their white plantation owner was. They love being associated with the biggest damn plantation and picking the most cotton and that was the first thing. Secondly, they boasted in making white folks rich. They got an sense of gratitude out of it. You got Black folk right now, look at Black Enterprise magazine. A successful Black is a Black who gets appointed to the highest level inside a white corporation. It could be Michael Caine over Godfather Pizza. He's the damn president in his damn pizza shop. He gets satisfaction out of being the president of the damn Godfather Pizza. I can go to Time Warner. They put a Black man up there and put him as the president, and he's just so happy if he does it. And it should all. And what they do, white people were taught to aspire to be successful inside of a white culture, not their culture, but inside of a white culture. And so in 1710, the first thing they did, it says, you got to work hard on this plantation and enrich us, point one. Second thing in the meritorious manumission policy, Dr. Watkins, was to say you can get freedom if you save a white person's life or a member of a white person's family. So when the war was in it, you always found a black folk. You probably see some of these movies. He'll go run and throw his butt on the sword to save a white person. Go look at the Alamo the Alamo movies. When the Mexican gets ready to stab John Bowie, guess what? The black man runs and throw his body in front of his so he can get stabbed. They were taught if you save a white person's life, you get meritorious manumission. That was built into them to work hard. And the last thing was built into the code of conduct and meritorious manumission was to say that you would tell on any black person who was conspiring or dreaming or hoping to escape and run away or participate in a slave revolt. And so consequently, when I went and checked up on possible, you would squeal and tell a white man. I checked the 310 supposedly reputable attempts for blacks to have slave revolts, slave insurrection. Guess what? A black person squealed in every damn one of them because the slave code, because the white code had taught him, the code that the meritorious manumission policy told him he was obliged to tell on and squeal on his own people and prevent it. So anytime you see a black person all through history, always want to plan something to help black folk, you go to any meeting, there's always one or two in there, provocateurs sitting in out in the crowd, just can't wait to go get on television and tell white folk what you're up to. That's a part of the culture. They've been enculturated to do that, to sell their own people out, to break in their own neighborhoods, their own neighbor's home. Go to any major city, urban area, they get pissed off, want to kill somebody, they're gonna run kill their own people. You know why? Because they're seeing black folk through the eyes of whites. If whites have no respect for black lives and black lives don't matter, and black man's been enculturated to see his own people through the eyes of whites, then what does it mean to go kill another black man? So there is no code of conduct for blacks. And you're talking about like the Asians. Just in running my seafood factory, and after 9 years, you know who would buy all my seafood? Asians. They would come down by 10 or 15,000 pounds a week. But guess what? They would tell me, said, Dr. Anderson, you're the only black person that we'll buy from. We don't buy anything from no black folk. We don't buy from black folk. They say, if you ever on a Friday night, you can see all kind of blacks saying, come on, baby, I'm going to take you out to Chinatown. They say, you're never gonna see a white Chinaman go and tell his wife, put your best clothes, I'm going to a nigger town to go to a restaurant. They ain't gonna do it. That's why the Wall Street Journal put out a big story saying the Chinese said under no circumstance they're gonna buy from black folk. They're never gonna hire the black folk. You can go to any Chinese business or Asian business, they're not gonna hire the black folk because their code of conduct that you're raising the issue about. Their code of conduct forbids that. That's my point.
Wow. Everybody, I'm talking to Dr. Claud Anderson, and as you know, he's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and also Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. These books should be in your library. If you have not taken a look, I hope you will have it in your heart to go to powernomics.com and go take a look at what he's got there. You can buy the books off powernomics.com. And it's, you know, I mean, you think about all the things that you could spend a few dollars on that are a complete waste of time, complete waste of money that won't give you anything. These books, I can certify, they changed my life in terms of really shifting my perspective. And I thank God that somebody wrote about this stuff. You know, there's a lot of Black history, Dr. Anderson, that you've covered in your books that we never learned in school. Ain't nobody gonna tell us this on TV, you know. And so when you have somebody that took that time to spend thousands of hours researching and detailing very specific things, you know, that we can utilize in the battles for things like reparations or the political conversation or economic development conversation, you know, that's an asset that can last us for hundreds of years. You know, this is something that, you know, when I go back to Powernomics, I feel like I'm looking at, you know, just something that's just structured. You know, like I just turned a random page. And here, you know, when you break down the original role of Black churches and things like that, you know, I got stuff underlined and all that. It's because I keep going to the books and I keep on finding stuff that is relevant to exactly what we're dealing with today. You know, like Black Labor, White Wealth. This book is ripped up. You know, I done scratched it up, wrote it, because I end up reading the same passages over and over and over again. And what I do is like putting together a jigsaw puzzle where I'm taking what's in the book and I'm connecting it to what I'm seeing in the Black community, because we're all trying to figure this puzzle out. And so I think this is a 100-year project. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to be done, probably 200 years after all of us are gone. So but we have to leave something there in terms of a legacy. So speaking, going back on, so everybody, before we move on, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that right now. We would love for you to do that. Also, if you want to support the platform, you can support by going to blackfinancialintelligence.com. That's blackfinancialintelligence.com. Your kids are getting ready for the summer, so you can get some flashcards, workbooks, things like that we have for children that'll teach them economics and financial literacy. But so let's go back to code of conduct.
Boys, what you've done, and I congratulate you, you just pulled a sheet off of what my old intent for the last 50 years, what it was.
What's it?
With writing those 5 books, you know what the intent was?
What's that?
To try to instill in Black people a Black culture, a positive Black culture, an appreciation, and a code of conduct for my people. That's the point of those books you just articulated. Black labor, white wealth, saying here's the nature of the problem. Powernomics that says here's how you started playing the game and win as a team. Dirty Little Secrets that says you are special people, exceptional people. 2 books that laid out 1,000 little episodes and stories about what Blacks have created and achieved under the most dire circumstances on the earth. And the last book, The Black History Reader, those 5 books were designed to instill in you a Black culture and a sense of togetherness. And that's why, in the last thing I said to you about a week ago, I've been trying very hard to, once I put all those things in place and get enough of those books sold, I was trying to generate an us too movement based on a new culture, a new understanding, a new belief, a new sense of faith, togetherness, need, and a camaraderie to work together as a team and practice group economics and group politics. You just exposed it. That's exactly what it was for. You just, it was to bring Black folk together and say, you are special, you're exceptional people. You've heard me say this at least 1,000,000 times, that you are special people, exceptional people. But see, the problem is you cannot be an exceptional people. You cannot play as a team at the same time you're trying to social integrate. It cannot be done. You cannot have your foot on the brakes and the foot on the gas pedal at the same damn time and want to know why you're not moving, why you're not progressing. Anybody that drives a car, so say I got my left foot on the brakes, I got my right foot on the gas, this damn car won't move because you're exercising inappropriate behavior for the conditions you're in and what you've been in for the last 460 years. You don't play as a team. You don't practice group economics. You don't practice group politics. You don't have a culture. Your culture right now is not African culture. It's a culture that slavery and Jim Crow segregation allowed you to generate to protect yourselves in this country for the last 460 years. Your culture would be Black music. Every form of Black music in this country and around the world, whether it's in Latin America or Asia, they play Black music. You have a genius for generating music. Same thing in sports. You have a genius for big athletics and performing. You got a physical anatomy that gives you a major advantage over anybody else in sports. You had a genius for creating slang, talk, conversation, which somebody called non-standard Negro dialect. You had all these geniuses and talents, but you don't use them because you're so damn busy trying to run away from Blackness and social integrating. You don't have a code of conduct that you can learn, that you can use to compete. You shouldn't be controlling the sports industry from the bottom to the top. You should be owning the stadiums, producing all the athletic equipment. You should owning all the athletic teams. In music, you should be controlling every aspect of the music, whether it's jazz, blues, Dixieland, gospel. You should be generating all special kind of clothing in the country. Black folk don't do it because they have no code of conduct, and you put your foot right on the spot today.
Well, you know what, everybody, I'm gonna lay this out here now. Dr. Anderson, I'd like to get your take on this. I'm a big believer in the code of conduct, not because it's something that I figured out on my own. I'm not gonna ever claim to be that smart. I went to school for a little bit and I figured out a couple of things, but I don't know everything. But again, we talked to you guys earlier. Even animals understand codes of conduct. When you see birds flying in an arrow like that, that's because the birds have an innate code of conduct that they understand, that it just came from Mother Nature, from God, or from a higher power, wherever it came from. You know, we know these birds didn't go to college. They didn't read Powernomics. You know, the birds didn't have somebody teach them how to have a code of conduct. They just have it, right? And in fact, Dr. Anderson, this week there was this goose. I was telling everybody this story about this goose. I was running down the road. You know, I've been doing all my jogging, trying not to get too fat. And there's this goose who's blocking the road. And the goose was standing there, and he was really looking at me with an attitude, you know, like staring me down like another man, like he was ready to, you know, fight me. And he kept sticking his tongue out at me. And I asked my girlfriend, I said, what does that mean when a goose keeps sticking his tongue out? And she said, I think he's ready to fight you. I said, I ain't worried about fighting no goose. You know, but then I looked at him and he had his chest out, you know, and then I took another step forward and his wings kind of went up. Like, he's like, don't you take another step or we about to throw down. And then when I figured out what was going on, I looked over on the side and there was a nest, and his woman was basically sitting on some eggs that were about to hatch. And he was basically standing in the middle of the road, like almost like a police officer, blocking traffic. He was sitting in the middle of the road saying nobody will pass this road because the woman I'm with is about to have my children. And so I was sitting there thinking, you know, this is a goose. Can't no bird hurt me. I'm gonna keep on walking. I took another step, and do you know his neck extended to the point where he went up about 2 feet in the air? Like, his neck got real long, and he hissed at me. Like, and I said, oh my God, I'm about to get in a fight with a goose. And here's the thing. Here's why I brought that story up, is because, you know, to me, when that goose is protecting his family, that's him honoring a code of conduct. You know, it wasn't like the female goose was out there, you know, threatening us to fight. She was sitting over there acting like she didn't even know what was going on. You know, she's just sitting there doing what a mother does. And he knew that as his code of conduct, that as the man of the house, he's supposed to make sure that she's safe while she delivers the babies. This was fascinating to me because I know Negroes with PhDs who ain't got the sense of a damn goose. You know, who literally don't understand, you know, so to me, I think a code of conduct is very natural for survival. This ain't rocket science, everybody. This is really you going back to your nature in terms of who you really are and letting go of who they told you that you were. Because when you see people violating codes of conduct and just doing any old thing, men not protecting women because the men want to be women more than the women do, you know, all that came from white folks. They taught us how to be weak and scared and wimpy and not protect our families and all that. And so to me, I think coming back to a code of conduct is not just a decision, or it's not just a learning process. It's really unlearning, an unlearning process where you're going back to your natural state of who you were meant to be. What do you think, Dr. Anderson?
I think you're absolutely right, and I can copy you with a similar circumstance with the monkeys. I was down in Jacksonville, Florida, at the zoo. Took my wife and my 2 kids over to the Jacksonville Zoo, and we went past the monkey cage, and my wife and my 2 kids, my daughter and my son, they kept trying to throw peanuts in there into the cage to the monkey. And in that cage, there was a mother monkey and a baby monkey and a father monkey. But the father monkey was in the back. He kept beating on the shaking about. He kept running around, beating on the walls, climbing the walls and shaking and screaming, showing his teeth. Because what my daughter and my kids and my wife was doing, they were giving peanuts to the kids, to this baby monkey and to the mother monkey. The mother monkey kept looking back at the father monkey like this. You know, see what he's up to. He's just screaming, yeah, making all kind of noises, shaking the cage, and she kept looking at the back, trying to pick up the peanuts and give it to the baby, and we just saying, I wonder why he's raising so much hell back there in the back. And see, what he was exercising was a code of conduct. What he was saying is, I don't want you to be begging. He said, I got some self-respect as a father monkey. Yes, you got my butt chained up in this cage, but I resent the fact that you're begging people to feed you while I can't do a damn thing, be locked in this cage with you. He was in the back raising Cain, and finally, but she kept looking back, feeding and picking up the peanuts and giving it to the baby. And finally, you know what he did? That father monkey, he reached down and grabbed some monkey waste and threw it. And it just barely missed my daughter and my son. He threw it at him. And what he was saying is, I told my wife, I respect that damn monkey. the father monkey. He says, get the hell away. And he said, I don't want my damn wife and my kid begging you for some damn food. You got us locked up in a damn cage. And see, black folk never got that through, and I never understood that. That's why right now, all this thing with transsexual and gayism, black folk don't stand up. They don't understand that the black male is an endangered species. His ass is grass. That's why right now, that's why all these instances, when now you see all this gayness popping up, when all of a sudden a white boy up in Benton Harbor, and he wants to run for the mayorship and want to run for the president of the United States and admit that he's gay. You now got a black woman who's married to a white woman becomes the mayor of Chicago. You got a senator now out in Colorado. He's now saying he's gonna run for the president of the United States and he's gay. And you got they got black men running around dressing up because it weakens the black race. It breaks their code of conduct on masculinity. It puts him in a non-competitive position with whites where he can't defend himself or his family or his children. And now here come Morehouse College down in Atlanta, Georgia. This is totally disrespectful. They now said they now come out with a new policy where they're gonna start open their doors to new people coming in, where traditionally Morehouse was a college for black men. It was a male school for black men, for raising black men who can be intellectually competitive with whites. And now what they said, they open that door, so they're gonna start bringing in gays and transsexuals into Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. That is totally insulting. That is that. And so what I'm saying to people is that the black male, not only are they shooting one of you every other week and killing you, they're beating you all the time by the police. They're not dragging Indians and beating them and shooting them. They're not dragging white females. They're not dragging Asians, Arabs and beating them. The endangered species in this country is the black man. Anything that you do that weakens or destroys your code of conduct, your masculinity, your ability to protect and produce for your own people, you are killing yourselves. That's a form of suicide. That homosexuality is a form of suicide. It's inappropriate behavior, and they're trying to get black folk to accept it. So they be so damn weak, anybody can kick their ass for the rest of their lives. But black folk won't come out and say, no, we got a code of conduct. We're only gonna accept appropriate behavior, not inappropriate behavior. We're no longer interested in the black community, the black neighborhoods being a Sodom and Gomorrah.
Everybody, this is Dr. Claud Anderson, author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader 1 and 2. His website is powernomics.com. I hope that you will go and take a look at powernomics.com because these are the books that I believe every black child should read. And so what I think we can do, hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't done this, please hit the thumbs up button. Also, if you'd like to support intelligent black media, as we push intelligent black media throughout the world, please feel free to go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. So what I want to do is lay out 3 elements to what everybody can write down as a proposed code of conduct for everybody that's in here. If you will give me the privilege and the opportunity to make a suggestion, and Dr. Anderson, you can feel free to add to this, but I'm gonna throw out a suggestion for a code of conduct. You know, it's a balance. You know, I want you to have your civil liberty to do what you want. I'm not going to judge you for this, but I'm gonna, as an advisor, I'm not trying to be your leader. I'd love to be an advisor for you. Let me give you some suggestions on what I think could be a good code of conduct that we could begin in our households right now. Your household is your kingdom. That is your space. In my household, the black culture in my household ain't the same as the black culture that's out there. You know, in my household, the culture involves education. In my household, the culture involves financial literacy. In my household, the culture involves black people loving each other and supporting each other, not no foolishness, domestic violence, or ignorance, anything like that. Why? Well, because in my household, I'm the king. In this kingdom, I am the king. I am Joffrey Jopper from Coming to America, and my face is printed on the money. Okay, so the same thing is true in your household. In your household, you are the king, you are the queen. You define the culture, you define the codes of conduct. You are going to build your family empire. So let me make 3 quick suggestions so that everybody can have something to take home with them. And you can write this down. If you got a pen nearby, write this down. I'm going to make a suggestion on some codes of conduct you may want to consider and implement. This is what we believe in. This is what we do in our house. Number 1, we believe deeply, and we repeat incessantly to the point of brainwashing, what we call the black core of 3. If you know the Black Core of Three, please state it. I'm gonna start having you guys, or asking you guys, inviting you to state the Black Core of Three. We believe in, and this is the foundation for the Black Business School, everything else. We believe that Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black businesses. We believe Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black businesses. We know that others are not educating our kids. We need to do that. We need to create our own jobs because we don't want to spend our lives as slaves. And also we need to support Black businesses, because if you support Black businesses, then you're forming an economic base, which allows you to build more businesses and schools and create jobs and do anything you want to do. Number two, we believe that every Black child before the age of 12 should know the fundamentals of the 3 pillars of wealth. That is how to buy a home / invest in real estate. It means how to start their own business, and how to make investments, particularly in the stock market or other places where their wealth will grow. So by the age of 12, your child should know the 3 pillars of wealth: stock and bond investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. And number 3, I'm gonna throw this out there again, a suggestion. Don't have to do it. Pick and choose the part that works for you. I believe that every Black family should all have your children understand the principles of powernomics. Books like this represent the closest thing to a Black agenda that I've ever seen in my life. And these ideals, I think when your children understand these ideals at an early age, it allows them to grow into the kind of person who can be an asset to the community, who's going to take their energy and turn it inward and not outward, who's going to bring it back home to they're not running away from the hood. They tell you to try to get out the hood. No, they're coming back to the hood, and they're bringing resources back to the hood. That's how China became powerful. They had their best scientists and their smartest people trying to leave China, and they said, no, you don't want to leave China. You come home to China because that's where your strength is at. So those are 3 proposals I throw out to you: the Black Core of 3, the things you want your child to do before the age of 12, and having your children read books like Powernomics. Okay, so Dr. Anderson, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, let me recount something that happened to me when I was with President Carter. I was invited to participate in a major program down in Puerto Rico. Again, it was focusing on codes of conduct. That meeting down in Puerto Rico, we met out at Fort Morrell out there, and in Puerto Rico. They had two of almost every extraction in the United States. They invited two Puerto Ricans. They had one woman named Goldie Chu, as a Puerto Rican from maybe she was Asian, from Connecticut. They had Alfred Wong from San Francisco State. They had two Indians, I think an Apache and another Cherokee Indian participating. They had one white guy and one white female, and me. And somebody else in it, some other extraction. But anyway, I was raising Cain at the meeting, for about 3 or 4 days meeting in Puerto Rico about the importance of having a code of conduct. And after about a half a day, we went out for a break. And some of the people in the meeting came out and met me in the hallway and said, Dr. Anderson, we're tired of your crap. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you might be the president of the United States. They said, but you're wasting our damn time. I said, what do you mean? They said, because you're the only person who keeps talking about the importance of a code of conduct. They say, everybody at this damn meeting, every extractor that has a code of conduct except you damn Black folk. That's your damn problem. You're wasting our time. I said, so I was about ready to fight. I said, hold a second. Wait a minute. I ain't going for that. What do you mean I'm wasting your time by the code of conduct and you jumping on me? And they said, well, look, each one recited. One of them, I can't think of her name now. She was from Chicano. She said, Dr. Anderson, even the Chicano movement, we have a code of conduct. And it was very simple. We say, whenever your community move and your people move, you move and follow your people. She said, that's how simple it is in our code of conduct. That's why in every town, we're going to have a Mexican town, a little Havana, a little Hialeah, a little Cuba, because we stay with our people. And I said, okay. And then then Alfred Wong from San Francisco State, he said, Dr. Anderson, even in Chinatown, we've always had a code of conduct. It was very simple. In Chinatown in San Francisco, because he's from San Francisco, he said in Chinatown, it was very simple. That in Chinatown, we didn't need any white policemen to come in our neighborhoods to try to enforce a code of conduct from a white standard. So we didn't allow a white policeman in any Asian or Chinatown in the United States. That was fact. They said, because we had a cardinal rule that if you lived in Chinatown, you were Chinese, you did something that violated the code of conduct, you had to get out of town before the sun went down, or your butt floated in the damn bay with your throat cut. And then they said we had two groups. One was called the hatchet men, the other was called the tongues that dealt with you. Today you might call it the mafia or some organized crime that you mentioned earlier. And then the Apache Indian, he said, Dr. Anderson, even as you see these negative movies or cowboy movies about us, you know, he said, we also had, even though we might have been beat up sometime, you know, and by the white man, but he said, but we did have a code of conduct in these Indian villages. I said, what was your code of conduct? He said, well, a very simple rule that said you got freedom in our Indian tribes, the Apaches. So you got your freedom. You can make your own decision. If you want to leave the tribe, you can go with the white folk anytime you want to. But once you leave our tribe and go get with white folks, like you black folk doing social integration, you all socially integrate. We had Indians that wanted to socially integrate with whites. But once they left that tribe, they went outside of a fort. They said they could never, never, never come back to the tribe. Once you left the tribe, went and integrated with whites, you could not come back. That was the first thing. So, and then if you ever watch these movies, you see a fort, see little Indian teepees around there, around those forts. They said you must live with whites. You couldn't come back. The second thing they said as an Indian is that if you did come back and you brought back the cavalry or white folk to attack us and try to enslave us and beat up and kill us, they said the first arrow we shoot will be to get your butt. You'll be the first person we'll kill if you ever bring white folk back to do us in. And see, now every day in the black community, we're doing just the opposite. Then I said, I'm sorry. And I said, and you're right. They said, only you would in your black community, would you all let a black man go downtown every day, integrate with whites, sell you all out, then come home in the evening, put on his shorts, go out in the backyard and barbecue and cut the grass, and you don't do a damn thing about it. That's you all's problem. Your people, the only people who have a damn code of conduct. You let black folk do anything they want to do. You keep talking about, well, we can't say anything. He's got a right. They say he don't. Your people in your group do not have those rights that you keep giving them to them. They do not have a right to sell you out, misuse you, and abuse you. They do not have a right to constitute an overclass that would suck up money and wealth and power and resources and go with the white community and abandon you and leave you leaderless, powerless, and no nothing, no home, no businesses, no community, nothing. You don't have a right. They don't have a right to sell you out. They said, but you let these people get away with it. That's you all's problem. They said, please don't come to any more of these meetings, invite us here. And you start spending all our time talking about what you all lack. You can't get your people straight. Don't involve us in it. And I told him, I said, I apologize. You're absolutely right. We don't have a code of conduct. That's why I know in my books, when you hear me talking about code of conduct, we got blacks right now that are boasting about how they've socially integrated, how they abandon black folk. They don't trust black folk, don't want to be with black folk. They hate black folk. They hate blackness. They despise black folk. And they get away with it. No blacks. Right now, they got to run for public office soon. That's why I've been trying to create an Us Too movement. That's why I want all your readers, your listeners, to buy those damn books, those 5 library packs, and start reading them. I want a Black Us Too movement in this country. So they started running, when the Democratic Party, Republican Party started running for office in about another 3 or 4 months. I want to say, no, we ain't going for it anymore. We got an Us Too movement. We're gonna put our own interests first. We got our own code of conduct to look after our own people, buy from our own people, support our own people, protect our own people, and put our own people's interests first. And don't come here talking about what you're gonna do for minorities and poor folk and people of color and gays, transsexual, handicapped, midgets, people with ingrown toenails and hemorrhoids. We don't want to hear about that crap. If you're not gonna support black folk, do not run in our community, get our votes. Every one of these blacks are going to run for the president to watch. Everyone is going to talk about what they're going to do for everybody but black people, because they don't have a code of conduct. And they know that you don't have enough money to enforce the code of conduct. If you're going to have a code of conduct, you must have an economic base to punish or reward those who violate your code of conduct. This is very important. I'm telling you at the end of your question about the importance of a code of conduct. To have an effective code of conduct, you must have a wealth base beneath it, where you can either reward or punish those who violate it. That's one of the things I found out a long time ago in being in that meeting in Puerto Rico. You must have, we don't have a wealth base. We're so busy trying to integrate and put up businesses in everybody else's community and be consumers rather than producers and powers. We don't have a code of conduct. We couldn't even enforce a code of conduct because we don't have any money and wealth and power.
All right. So everybody heard that. So the code of conduct, the first code of conduct I would suggest for everybody is definitely within your household in the space that you control. create a code of conduct that's going to generate wealth and power. And then when you have wealth and power, you get to decide how things are going to happen in your life and in the lives of others. Everybody might not do it, and it's okay, but you can do it. You can do it in your household. I know that was the decision we made in our house, that we just have certain ways things are going to get done, and we're getting off the grid. You know, for the most part, we're just not interested in doing things the way they teach Black folks to do things. You know, so I want to say thank you, Dr. Anderson, for your time. And everybody who's in here, I hope you guys will take a second and give Dr. Anderson a digital round of applause. Just tell him thank you right quick, please, in the comments. Please hit the thumbs up button, share button, hearts and likes on Facebook, all that stuff. Let Dr. Anderson know how much you appreciate it. Powernomics Thursdays, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. My podcast, I usually come on here at 2 p.m. Eastern to go live. But if you want to get a text when I go live, in case I go live at some other time, just text the word voice to 31996. Text voice to 31996. Also, if you want to go check out Dr. Anderson's books, you can go to powernomics.com. He's got a library pack for $99. You get all 5 books plus a DVD. Again, this is a great summer exercise for your children, for your family, something that will bring you together, something that you will go back to over and over again as a reference for how you're going to build your own family empire. A lot of y'all, I don't know if anybody in here, I don't know if it sounds white of me to admit that I love the show Game of Thrones, but I'm going to just tell y'all right now, I love that show. And in Game of Thrones, all you're seeing, if you watch Game of Thrones, Dr. Anderson?
Yes. And I'll see you next week and tell them I'm going to see I'm going to go buy those books. I got to move this Us Two movement before the election started about another 2 I want you to surprise all these people who want to take Black folk for granted in this society.
All right. Well, take care, Dr. Anderson. Thank you so much.
Now, buddy.
But I'll let you get on out of here. But I'll tell you guys, with Game of Thrones, if anybody watches Game of Thrones, you know that Game of Thrones is basically a bunch of white people fighting for power. And if you watch Game of Thrones, one thing you'll notice that there are all these families that have been around for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, and they all have codes of conduct. You know, like the Lannisters always pay their debts. The Starks have a certain way of doing things, the Tullys, and you have all these royal families, and everybody in their own house, in their own space, is a king. They got a king, a queen, lords, the Lord of the North, etc. And I'm gonna tell you, I think that for you may want to think about your house in the same way. Your house is a kingdom. You are the king of that house. You are the queen of that house. You make the rules. You establish the code of conduct, and it's the code of conduct that keeps the house together, that keeps the family together. So, just going deeper into what Dr. Anderson said, I'll talk to you guys for a couple of seconds here because I know Dr. Anderson had to go, but I think this is worth discussing. Figure out what your code of conduct is going to be. Write some things down. Just some basic rules, like, for example, when I was growing up, my daddy was all about codes. My daddy's a soldier. He's plus he's a police officer, right? So, I mean, if anybody has codes of conduct, it's usually cops, right? Good or bad, right? And because some of the cops are dirty, but then some of them have codes just so they can stay alive, right? So ultimately, the idea of the code is not about morality and whether you like cops or don't like cops. It's about winning. It's about figuring out, like, what's the best way for your family to win. And I'm gonna tell you, when I grew up, I remember my daddy would give us codes of conduct, codes of behavior. One time, let me tell you a story. One time I was my dad's friend hooked me up with a deal on a new car when I was about 21 years old, and he was gonna give me a deal on the car. And I remember I called this man up to go meet with him to talk about this car, and he wasn't nowhere around. And I called the office, and I was like, well, I'm supposed to meet with him today, and he didn't show up, and blah 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 blah. And I'm talking to his white boss, and my father was like, no, don't do that. You don't do that. Don't do that to no brother. Don't call his boss and complain like that. So he was reminding me about staying on code. In other codes are things like you don't steal from family. If you got family, so that might be part of your code. You might just tell your children, look, we don't steal from family. Stealing's wrong all the time, but when it comes to family, that's like some death penalty type shit. Like, that's like, you steal from family, that's as low as you can get. So I don't care how desperate you are. I don't care how much you're feeling like Cardi B when she's talking about, I used to drug and rape and steal and rob, and blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're gonna go Cardi B level and start drugging and robbing people or whatever, don't do that to family. You do that to family, then you're gonna get cut out. You're gonna get cut out of the institution. You get cut out of the family because you violated the code, right? Every institution has a code. Every family has a code. Every group, organization, anything that's structured always has a code. So with your own family, figure out what your code is. So our code was you stick by your siblings no matter what. If your brother or your sister done did something ratchet, fine, deal with it internally, deal with it in-house. If I find out my brother murdered somebody, I'm not gonna go run to the popos and be like, oh yeah, officer, he's in the house, go get him. No, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna be like, they're gonna be like, where's your brother? I don't know, I haven't seen him. But then I'm gonna go find him and I might whoop his ass behind the scenes, right? But I'm not gonna go to the police and tell them where my brother is if I know my brother committed a crime. We're gonna handle that as a family, right? So family sticking together could be part of your code. Don't steal from your relatives could be part of the code. Economically speaking, if you borrow money from a relative, paying your relative back should be part of the code. Don't treat your damn relatives like they bill collectors. Anybody have that where y'all know that's a little touchy issue for me, because I don't have relatives borrow from me and then act like they forgot, like they don't even remember, like, what, I borrowed from you? What are you talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about? They get amnesia and shit, but they know how to blow up your phone when they need money. And then, so to me, I think part of your economic code might be, if you borrow money from a relative, you pay them back first. Or we go into Big Mama. Big Mama gonna settle it. She gonna be the judge and jury and executioner up in that mug, and she'll hit the gavel down and say, you need to pay your cousin back right now, right? You don't treat your relatives the way you treat a bill collector or a debt collection agency. Y'all, I understand. I know black folks. I'm telling you, if you know that feeling of the bill collectors calling and you just conveniently, you memorize all the numbers so you know not to answer, right? That's fine. But if you're gonna do that, you do that to them, but you don't do that to your own. You don't do that to your own relatives. Seriously, and if you have relatives who do that, then what you do is you just tell them, look, you broke the code. I still love you, but you'll never get money from me again, because in this family, you have bad credit now. Right now, your credit score is now down to 0, which means we will only loan you $0. So if you want $0, if you want to borrow $0.00, then we can get you every time. But if you want to borrow more than $0, like a penny, you're getting nothing because you broke the code. Why is it important to hold people accountable on code? Because codes are how institutions maintain themselves. It's like a basketball team that has a game plan. Every player's got to be on code. Every player's got to know what the strategy is. Every player's got to know how to run the offensive scheme. If one player's off code and doing his own thing, it messes everything up. With New Edition, they had Bobby Brown. He was off code, right? They all doing the same little dance. Bobby Brown's over on the side with his shirt off, wiggling like an asshole. They were like, you're off code, bro. You're messing up the group because you're off code, right? So ultimately, what I'm saying is that in our families, we got to have codes and we got to enforce those codes. And what you do is you start with your children, because remember that when you have you and your wife, you and your husband, you and your boyfriend, whatever it is, I ain't judging if you're married to your kids' parents or not. And then you've got your children, and your children will have children, and those children will have children. So in a very short amount of time, you won't be the parent anymore. You'll be the grandparent. And then after that, shortly after, you'll be the great grandparent. So you'll have 20 or 30 or 40 people that are all operating off of a code that you established way, way, way back in 2019. Right? It'll be the year 2069. You'll be old as hell, barely hanging on, and you'll just be looking. You'll be thinking back to, like, I remember when I created that code. I told your granddaddy when he was a baby that he needed to operate by the code. And you'll see your kids, grandkids, and great grandkids living by the code, building businesses off the code, holding the family together off the code. We need codes of conduct. So implement that in your house. I'm not talking about the whole black community right now. I told you, I don't have the power nor the energy to go and figure out a way to get 40 million black people on code. I can't do that. But what I can do is talk to you individually as heads of households. Like Game of Thrones. Like, okay, we're the kings of the north, or the queens of the north. Like, we run the north. So in your household, you're the lord of your household. In your household, figure out what your code is going to be. Is your code going to be educational excellence? That's the code we have in our house. You come up in here, you got too many B's on your report card, we're going to have a talk with you. You got a C on your report card, we're really going to have a talk with you and the teacher, and you're going to tutoring, and you have no choice, right? That's the code. You understand? Like, or the code between me and my woman. There ain't nothing that woman could ever do to me that would make me put my hands on her. There's no excuse. I don't care. I could come home and find her in the bed butt naked with 3 sailors and a monkey, and I still have no excuse for putting my hands on her. That's our code. We don't put our hands on each other. We don't yell at each other. We don't do ratchet shit, right? So figure out what your code is going to be as a family so that that will be implemented into the culture of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I want to say, Keith Baker, thank you very much for your support. Keith, you're going to be a moderator, man, because I appreciate you back and you having our backs. Let's see, intelligence and wisdom with direction and action plans. Much love to you and Dr. Anderson. Yeah, I wanted to give you guys an action plan to kind of maybe give some examples on sort of how we're implementing these things in our lives right now. So let me repeat the code of conduct that I proposed earlier. One of the codes we believe in the Black Business School is what we call the Black Core of 3. The Black Core of 3 says that Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black businesses. So that means that when it comes to education, I'm not real concerned with making the public schools better. I hope that they get better, but really, if I'm raising a child, I try to educate my child be above and beyond the public school. They're going to get education when they come home. They're going to get education from the web. Maybe I'm going to put them in a school like Freedom Home Academy International, but I'm not going to let a white man be solely responsible for educating my child. Don't disrespect to white folks, but y'all just haven't done a good job. Y'all failed miserably. Even though you've had billions of dollars in your pocket, you still can't educate a Black child appropriately. Create our own jobs means I don't believe that a Black person is happy or empowered or fulfilled when he spends his whole life working for the very same people who have oppressed our people for the last 400 years. We don't get ahead like that. We don't build wealth like that. We ain't moving forward like that. Ain't nothing good coming out of that. So we're going to try plan B. Plan B means we don't want you to create the jobs. We will create the jobs. So so when a politician says, well, Dr. Woods, how do we fix the Black unemployment rate? You know, maybe we can go to these big corporations that are owned by white people and get them to create more jobs for Black people and more affirmative action programs and the privileged Negro program and give some more good nigga stickers so that they'll hire more Black people. And I'll be like, no, here's what you do. You create a multi-billion-dollar fund and you allow smart people like myself or somebody else to take that $10 billion fund and to go into communities all across America and create urban business development centers. And in those business development centers, I know exactly what we would teach. We would take young children under the age of 12, and we, as well as their parents, and we would teach them how to invest in real estate. We would teach them how to invest in stocks and bonds. We would teach them how to start businesses, set up LLCs. And then we would bring them together as a group on a regular basis and have economic church. And in economic church, they would not only get the sermon and the information, but they would also network with one another so that they can become each other's customers. So I'm creating a business, you creating a business, I'm your customer, you're my customer. So we ain't got to worry about whether or not other people support us because we're taking our 1.3 trillion and we're supporting each other with that. You can't build an economy with 1.3 trillion dollars. I don't care what other people have told you. So the third part, educate our own children, create our own jobs, support Black businesses. Conscious spending is very important. When people talk about being woke, you must talk about being economically woke, being financially woke, being woke as a consumer. Why? Well, because they want you to engage in unconscious spending. Unconscious spending is when you do things on habit, when you just do things without thinking about it. You're a zombie and you're like, oh, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Target. You're just spending your money because you're not thinking about it and they're literally robbing you. Well, think about it like this. An unconscious person is not a person who is aware. An unconscious person is not a person who makes good decisions. An unconscious person is not a person who's safe. An unconscious person is a person who gets played. An unconscious person gets victimized. An unconscious person gets raped, whether that is physically raped or financially raped, right? A lot of sexual assault occurs because the victim was unconscious, right? So why would you want people to allow you or to encourage you to not just let them make you unconscious, but you actually seeking to be unconscious? You enjoy being unconscious. You want to be unconscious. Why would you want to be unconscious when unconscious people get financially raped? Right? So they are putting date rape drugs in your schools. So they can make you unconscious so they can rob you. They're putting date rape drugs in your media so they can put your ass to sleep so they can rob you. They're putting date rape drugs into the environments in department stores. When you go shopping, they do little things, the way the music plays, the way the imagery looks on the thing. The LeBron dunking a basketball and you want to be like him, so you want to wear the same shoes he's got on. No disrespect to LeBron, but that's how they do it. They want you unconscious because they know that you're easier to rob when you ain't woke. Who's easier to rob and kill and to steal from? A person who's wide awake, who's like, I'm on you. I drank coffee. What you doing? Wait, why you got your hand in my pocket? Right? Like, who's easier to rob? That person or the person who's like, who's knocked out? Who's knocked out? Who's easier to rob? The person who is fully alert and questioning everything you do and watching you like a hawk, or the person who is unconscious? So when people use terms like woke, stay woke, get woke, financially woke, I'm woke, you got to understand there's a meaning behind that. There's a deep interpretation of what wokeness really means. Wokeness means being alert to all the things they're doing to you, which means you got to question everything. Like every time you put food in your mouth, what is this? What are the ingredients? Why are y'all feeding this to me? Well, every time you consume something on TV, you got to be like, okay, what is going on here? What's the imagery? Why does all the, every time they have a lead character, the character is gay, and then they make the gay character black, they're trying to get me to want to be gay. Why is every black woman in this show always dating a white man? Oh, I get it. They want black women to let go of the black man and to want to go be with white men, you know what, to be the white man's side chick or whatever it is that she's doing on Scandal, right? Like if you're really woke, you can't even watch mainstream media anymore because you're always like noticing all the little shit that you wouldn't have noticed when you were asleep. You know, a woke person is a person who will read a book, a history book, a white history book, and be like, this is bullshit, man. Like Christopher Columbus did what? You know, right? But a person who's not woke, who's unconscious, is going to just suck it all in, right? And they're going to get robbed and raped at behind every turn. So wokeness is a necessity. Going back to code, Black Core 3, educate our own children, create our own jobs, support Black businesses. You don't need to send your kids to a special school to educate your own kids. You can have a university in your house. I have a university in my house. It's called youtube.com. Another university is called google.com. You know, we'll watch the Science Channel, whatever it is we want our kids to consume. We control that shit. It ain't gonna just come from somebody that we don't know, right? It's too important. Their brains are too important. Second part of the code of conduct is before the age of 12, rite of passage for children before the age of 12. Every Black child should know how to start their own business. Every Black child, that means fill out the LLC form, know the basics of running a business, producer versus consumer, maybe even get to the point where they can make their own money. At least be aware of that. Also, every Black child should know how to buy a home, the basics of buying a home, like what that looks like, why it's more important to be an owner versus a renter, like what the benefits are, how that works. Third, every Black child should know how to invest in the stock market. I've talked to you guys about it 1,000 times and explained that even monkeys can invest in the stock market. So if monkeys can invest in the stock market, so can your 7-year-old or your 10-year-old. It ain't that hard to do. The third part of the code of conduct, if you want to add this in, is some kind of books like Powernomics or whatever it is that you want your children to read. Have them reading books like that. If you want to go take a look at some of the books that are on my list, you can go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. But find something that's sort of required reading for the family. Offer your children, just say to them, like, look, I'll give you $20 if you read this book, or if you read chapter 5, I'll give you $10, right? Or the child comes to you and says, Mom, can I get money to go to Burger King or whatever? You say, okay, finish reading that chapter in Powernomics and I'll give you Burger King money. Every time your child wants something from you, that's an opportunity for you to have leverage over them. So don't waste it. Don't waste leverage. What you do is you say, like our kids really want a trampoline. They're like, we want a trampoline. How do kids want to? I'm like, who the fuck? Y'all ain't gonna use no damn trampoline. All these damn kids got trampolines. They don't even use them, right? But you know what? I'm like, okay, you want a trampoline? So guess what? I got something I can hold over your head forever. So whenever they start tripping, I'm like, well, you know, kids that trip like that, that do things like that, they don't get trampolines. Or every time they don't want to study their financial flashcards, I'll be like, well, you know, I don't want to get a trampoline for somebody who's not financially literate, right? You know, or every time they you know, I want them to read something, I'll be like, well, you know, if you read that, you'll be a step closer to getting your trampoline, or I can put $20 toward that trampoline for you, right? So figure out what they want and encourage them, incentivize them to do the things they need to do in order to get the things that they want. That's kind of how life works anyway, right? Smart people are the ones who get rewarded for that, right? So don't reward them for being stupid. Don't reward them for being lazy. Reward them for being hardworking. Reward them for being smart, and also reward them for understanding and sticking to the code of conduct. They must have a code of conduct in that household for themselves, for their own life, a code of conduct for their family and a code of conduct for their community. Then at that point, you unleash them into the world where they're going to be exposed to all the BS. But by the time they get exposed to the BS, you will have so deeply ingrained an ideology into their mental framework that the BS won't sink in. They're going to be the one at school who's going to be the wokest kid on the university campus, as opposed to all these other poor kids who don't know who the hell they are, and they get to campus, and these campuses are turning them into little idiotic Oreo zombies. So anyway, I'm about to go. I'm losing my voice. So please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please, please, please hit the thumbs up button. Also, if you want to get text alerts when I go live, text the word voice to 31996. Text voice to 31996. Also, if you want to go and check out financial flashcards for your kids or financial workbooks or something like that with the summer coming up or whatever the case may be, you can go to financialworkbooks.com or financialflashcards.com. It all goes to the same website, but it kind of helps you get directly to the flashcards if that's what you want to do. So I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon. I'm going to go and do something about my voice. I've been all hooting and hollering, and now I need to just go lay down and just shut the hell up for a little while. So I'll see you soon. Stay on code.